Right, I can see people starting to roll in. Let me just scrolling through to find some stuff here, and then we will get started. Give people a couple more seconds because it's ticking away. Right. Okay. Let's get started. So obviously, I am Jeremy Harbour from the Harbour Club. We're branded today. We're wearing our Harbour Club t-shirts. Myself and Steve. Steve did the Harbour Club a while back and has kindly volunteered his time to come and talk to everyone about today's exciting topic. So we're talking today about how to acquire an existing business with zero cash up front, even if you have a job. So it's that kind of transitioning from traditional employment into kind of doing deals for a living, I guess, instead of buying and selling companies. Now, obviously, I'm not a great person to talk about that because that's not the path that I took personally. Having said that, we've had lots of people over the years through our community come and be successful from a kind of traditional employment sort of area into transitioning into doing deals for a living. So I'll actually tell you a story about kind of how things started. So I mean, obviously, I'm guessing if you're joining this webinar, you probably know a little bit about my background and the things that I did. But when I first decided to start doing the Harbour Club, I did the very first ever Harbour Club in 2009, and then did another one relatively shortly afterwards. And for that one relatively shortly afterwards, I remember we had a delegate who applied to become a member. Back then it was an application process, and if you were approved, then you kind of became a member. We had somebody who had applied to join, and everybody before that had been, a successful entrepreneur who'd run businesses, often won awards for the businesses that they were running, and I would say were kind of, leaders in their field in entrepreneurship. And this person that applied had a job. They worked for a pharmaceutical company, and they were doing IT sort of change management stuff. And prior to that, they were in the army. And I was looking at this kind of application and thinking, like, I wonder if an employee can actually go and do this. I wonder if they're going to be able to empathize and build rapport with the target audience. And I was really close to saying no, because I thought it would, I couldn't, I was a little bit bigoted, I guess, in terms of my own background and trying to suppose that that was in some way superior to other people's backgrounds. This is going back a few years. And I think I was taking a bit of a bigoted view of the whole thing, if I'm being honest. And anyway, in the end, I had a chat with him. He's a lovely chap. And so we agreed that he would take part. And over the next 12 months, he did 8 deals. And no one, I mean, obviously we only had 9 members at that point, but no one had done anything like that in terms of performance. He was just an absolute machine. And I think a really big part of it was that because of the military background and then being an employee, he was quite good at doing what he was told to do. So when we set out a process or a system for him to follow, he was very good at going out and executing it and following it. Whereas entrepreneurs always like to hone and adapt things that they're told, they don't necessarily take things at face value. They like to try and improve upon them. It's often why, franchising is quite a good transition from employment, but not necessarily a good transition for an entrepreneur, because entrepreneurs can't follow the franchise rule book, whereas employees can quite well. So yeah, he was incredibly successful. I decided from that day forwards to stop being such a judgmental prick and give everyone the equal kind of shake of the stick. But yeah, it was just fascinating as a thought process to see, well, actually, this is quite a different way to the way I thought that it would, turn out. Now, obviously, I love doing mergers and acquisitions. I love buying businesses because most people's view on how you get into entrepreneurship is that you have to start a business and then, work really hard at that business. And the world of business startup is incredibly tough. You really have to sacrifice an awful lot. And I think if people knew what was ahead of them in their startup journey, they might actually think twice about doing it in the first place, which is why actually most entrepreneurs who've done successful startups often have a sort of belligerence about them, or sometimes like, just a sort of pragmatic impulsiveness about them that possibly doesn't serve them in other areas of their life. They can be in entrepreneurship. It was the thing that got them off the starting line, which so few people are able to do. And so, it is really, really hard to do a startup. And also, I think the first 3 years of any startup, you're really kind of pushing a massive rock up a hill. There's very little reward in that early time. It's all blood, sweat, and years. And it only really starts to get some inertia once you've got some repeat customers, some people that are just calling you back, and it starts to gain a little bit of traction. And actually, when it comes to selling the business, you don't really get those lost years back. And what's interesting is the motivation for a lot of people to start a business in the first place is that they're looking to get freedom, and that freedom obviously or often represents itself as time freedom and financial freedom. And obviously when you start a business, that has the absolute opposite effect of giving you time freedom and financial freedom. In fact, it takes away all of your time and all of your money in a lot of cases, and ends up creating a bit of a prison that you can't escape from. Now, if you love what you do, and you've heard people about, follow your passion and do what you love every day, and you'll never work a day in your life, and all of those kind of things, then those 3 years are fine, and you're a pig in the proverbial shit during that period of time. But in most cases, you do sometimes need that freedom and that bit of a break from it, because it is a little bit relentless. So I kind of came to the conclusion that for me it was a young man's game. It was something that was great to do and exciting to do when you're young, and it teaches you so much about business. I mean, don't get me wrong, doing a startup is a rite of passage for any entrepreneur, because the lessons it teaches you, the hard and brutal lessons sometimes that it teaches you are fantastic. And in fact, in my first book, Go Do, I talk about starting a business with no money and how beneficial that is, because whatever you start a business with the first time around, you're probably going to lose it. So it's better to start with nothing and lose nothing than it is to beg, borrow, steal, and put together a few $100,000 and lose the lot. So basically, startups I think are an interesting idea, but I would never do a startup again. I would always buy a business that was already off and running and had customers, had a company already set up, had a bank account. I mean, Jesus Christ, these days with banks, it can take you months to get a bank account open. The stupid nonsense they ask you to go through nowadays to get just a simple high street bank account open, it feels like pulling teeth. And that's only the start of the relationship. That's before you actually start doing any banking with them. So imagine how it gets when you actually start sending money in and out of this bank account. So, there are just loads of little things that are incredibly painful in the startup, but much, much easier when you buy a business that's already running and already operational. And that's either a good business that's profitable and ticking over and doing well, or even a business that needs a little bit of help and a bit of tweaking and a bit of sort of sorting out. So I think it's a really viable alternative to doing a startup, is to pick up a business. And again, exactly the same premise as doing a startup. If you do a startup with some money, you'll probably lose it. If you go to buy businesses with some money, you'll probably lose it. So it's better to engineer transactions where you're not putting your own cash in up front, and thereby de-risk the transaction from day one and provide yourself with lots of opportunities. Now, I'm going to come on to, I'm going to let Steve speak in a second, but I'm going to come on after Steve has told you what he's up to. I'm going to come on to some really great ideas you can use as an employee, particularly how you can use the skills in whatever you do as leverage to do an acquisition and how you can use one of our strategies called the Weibo to effectively take a small stake and then turn it into a bigger stake and eventually the whole ownership of a business if you still have a sort of a job on the side. But I thought it'd be a great time to bring in Steve, because he's done a number of deals recently. I mean, he's got an interesting story in that he actually did the Harbour Club a while back and was one of the people that didn't take any action, because not everybody does, and decided to do a repeat. And obviously, if you're already a member, you can come back and do the repeat for a tiny fraction of the cost. And since then, you've done, is it 4 deals now, Steve?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we've got another one we're hoping to complete 1st of October.
Right, okay, so number 5 is coming up in October, and he only did the retake of the course and really started in earnest in May. Now, if anybody's watching the recording, it's September now, so kind of May, June, July, August, September, 5 months, 5 deals is pretty good going. What's the secret sauce? I guess the first thing, did you transition from employee to deals, or was it more self-employed to deals?
Well, I'd gone from self-employment, got to sort of the end of my 30s, wanted to go and set up for myself. My background is finance and accounting, so then I set up an accounting business that was doing traditional accounting, business planning, and then a little bit further down the line, consultancy. And then, of course, we get to COVID last March, and all the consultancy work stops. And you think, now what do you do? Because the accounting work's okay, but it's not going to get you where you want to be. So then I go on to, and I'd always wanted to look at something like the Harbour Club. I'd researched it, and then just got myself on the course. I did the repeat, as Jeremy's mentioned. And then after the course, picked the phone up and started to talk to people, spoke to local firms of accountants, spoke to solicitors, spoke to people in my network, set up my LinkedIn profile as I needed to. And it was the interesting thing was, after speaking with the local firm of accountants, they said, we found out we had some rapport anyway because our children were in school. And he said, well, I'm probably not the best person to speak with. You need to speak to Sean. Now, Sean heads up our M&A side of things, which I didn't even know they had, this particular firm of accountants. Now, bearing in mind, I'd introduced myself as a private investor, but I was looking for somebody who could help me with financial due diligence, even though I was an accountant, and somebody who could help me with all of the tax, accountancy, all that stuff, because I didn't want to have to do it myself. I wanted somebody else to do it. So I kind of positioned myself that way. And when I spoke with the head of the M&A, he said, well, I've actually got 6 clients who are looking to sell. He said, take me through the criteria. I said, well, I'm looking at something, a minimum £500,000 in turnover, management team if possible is ideal, established for over 10 years, and these particular sectors. He said, well, based on what you've told me, I've got probably 2 that tick your boxes. The others were kind of corner shops and nail bars and things, which, I mean, if you can, I'm not the sort of person who needs something in beauty, as you can tell. But he said, but these 2 in particular could be right up your street. So do you want me to arrange a call? So I had an introductory call at that stage via Zoom. I found out as much as I could about the owner at that time. Found out that he was involved with dog training and dog handling. It was a real passion of his. And I found that on the internet that the 2 particular dogs that he'd had been selected for national trials. So during the first call, I put that into the conversation. He said, how do you know that? And all it showed was I was making the effort to build the rapport with the seller. We're going really well. We had one other call after that. And I always make the joke that we could have actually agreed this deal over a coffee and a bacon sandwich, because we just built the rapport and it naturally flowed from there. By the time that we met face to face, which was the 3rd time we'd spoken, I knew in my mind what valuation I put on the business. I'd seen 3 years worth of accounts. I knew what the trends were. I knew what the sector was doing as best as I could. And I said, well, where do you want to be? So you not spoke with my accountants? I said, no. I said, this is the first time we've really spoken about valuations. He said, well, and he put a 6-figure number on it. And I was about 13,000, 14,000 shy of that. under that. I says, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. And I came down by 20 grand from his valuation. I said, I'm willing to get, my figure is at this, but if we can get our turnover of this business to £1 million over the next 5 years, I'll give you the extra 20 grand. He says, done. Now, he owns the premises, and we're continuing to rent those premises for the next 5 years, and I retain the option to buy. So at the end of that time, if we haven't outgrown the premises, we can take them if we want it, or we can say no, we can continue to rent. We've got flexibility. And that took us to the first deal, really. You know, and since then, I've been lucky enough to be involved in Jeremy's mentoring groups. That's led to other opportunities. I've got, where we know, 4 other JVs at different stages. In my pipeline, I've probably got 8, maybe 9 deals at various stages. It's pretty exciting because you'd never, you know, at first when you speak with somebody, it's daunting when you speak to a seller for the first time. Then after the conversation, you think, well, that wasn't so bad. Then you have a few conversations and you get your pitch right. And then it's just having another conversation with somebody, you know, talking to one of your friends. So it becomes second nature after a while, and it's quite an enjoyable process.
Yeah, there's some fantastic lessons in there. I think, you know, I think the key things that I would pull out of that for anybody that's listening would be the use of an introducer to refer potential companies to you as a sourcing method, and the rapport. You know, that ability to build enough rapport with the target that you know, you could have closed the deal over a coffee and a bacon sandwich, and ironically, it costs less than a coffee and a bacon sandwich up front, which is so maybe you shouldn't have used the coffee and the bacon sandwich because it would have increased the value of the transaction. But yeah, it's that rapport where the deal's going to happen anyway, regardless of who else then gets involved in it, is quite meaningful and quite powerful. And it is worth investing time in that rapport section where you're really just getting to know them and getting to understand them and their motivations, because that will help you enormously when it comes to the positioning of the actual deal and you being perceived as the safe pair of hands and the reliable person to take it over. So yeah, that's you know, that's a hugely valuable lesson to share there for anybody that's thinking of doing this. And obviously, if you're an employee, you can normally find time to step out and have a phone call for half an hour and chat to somebody about you know, about their business and their you know, motivations and their life and everything else. So yeah, it's obviously something that you can fit around yeah, the various things that you do. So yeah, and I'll just come on to the structure that that I know Steve has used, and quite a number of Harbour Clubbers like this in the community, and particularly people who are moving from employment into deal making like this structure, because it also provides an opportunity to receive an income. So you know, often what people are looking to do is replace an income. So whereas I tend to look at deals with just a pure capital event play, which obviously can be a bit bigger, but there's a feast or famine element to that. There are long periods of time where you don't have a capital event and then you get a big capital event. And obviously you can do that once you're a bit more seasoned as a deal maker and you have your, you know, investment portfolio paying for your lifestyle. But up until then, it's important to retain an income stream, because you've got to, you know, keep a happy home life and food on the table and all the you know, the things that keep you kind of comfortable. So yeah, this Weibo strategy that we use is really popular for this. Now, Weibo kind of came about by a little bit by accident. We've done sort of things like it. We do, you know, I've taken lots of stakes in businesses like sweat equity positions and things like that in the past. In fact, you know, I used to use on the old Harbour Club about 9 or 10 case studies of taking different ways of taking sweat equity up to sort of 50% of a company. And in fact, that guy who was on the second Harbour Club, the first ever employee, he did one with 80% of a company sweat equity. And you know, it really comes down to how much you ask for and what you're giving them in return from a sweat equity position. But we coined this Weibo strategy after one of our delegates, again, many years ago, probably like 2010 or something like this. He was a consultant. He used to do marketing consultancy. And so consulting was typically just swapping time for money. He came on the Harbour Club, had the penny drop that he could be swapping that time for money and equity. So instead of just swapping the time for money, he could also get this equity kicker and then use that equity kicker as a kind of foot in the door to build the relationship further. Now, he had a really cheeky approach. In fact, the first time he told me this, I was like, fuck, that's really sneaky. But actually, it was quite clever as well. So he did marketing consultancy. And so what he used to do is look for people that were recruiting salespeople or sales managers and submit his CV and go for job interviews. Because you generally end up speaking to the director, or if it's a small business, you know, the sales director, or if it's a small business, even the owner of the business when you go for the job interview. And so so in this particular case, he went for a job, I think it was for a sales manager in Bournemouth. And he rocked up to his interview, did the half an hour interview, and then at the end of it said, I don't want this job. I don't think you need me. And he said, what you need is some help with your lead funnel so that you get better qualified leads coming into your existing sales team so that you increase the number of sales. And I could do that in a week for $5,000 cash, just a $5,000 payment. It'll take me a week and you won't have another employee on your payroll and all this other stuff, but you'll probably get the same sort of results. And so after a little bit of toing and froing, they agreed to let him come back and just do that one thing. And so he came back, did that implementation for $5,000. He said, now, the next thing you want to do is outside the other, and they were very happy with that. He said, the next thing you want to do is outside the other end of that funnel, you want to increase all the different layers of conversion all the way through so that, you know, you can really, ramp it up. And a small tweak at each level is going to have a really big impact on your sales, which is going to have a really big impact on your P&L. And I'd be happy to do that project for you. It's a longer project. And so I would need a retainer every month to be able to do it. But I'd also like an equity kicker after 3 months if I'm showing you that I've had some success and I'm meeting certain, KPIs. And I don't know what percentage he asked for, but typically Harbour Clubbers are asking for sort of 10–20% at this point when they're doing something like this. He then came back, did those small things and took the 10–20% equity kicker. And so that was the birth of what we called the work-in, buy-out strategy, or Weibo. The idea was that instead of just selling consultancy, you sell consultancy and you get equity. And since then, it's been tweaked and played around with and enhanced. We've had kind of 10 years and 1,000 Harbour Club delegates kind of playing around with this model and seeing all the different ways that you can skin a cat. And one of the quite popular ones now is to actually use it to acquire the whole company. Basically, it goes a little something like this. So you approach a target that actually wants to sell. So they're trying to sell their business. Now, this might be a company that's been for sale for a couple of years, or it's a retirement type opportunity. The person's getting a bit old and wants to, so there's they probably want to step down at some point, but maybe haven't done anything about selling it. And you basically go in and offer to enhance the value of the business in exchange for an equity stake. Now, once you've done that, so effectively, on the Harbour Club, we talk about all the different financial engineering techniques and things like that you can use to add loads of profit or add loads of cash to a business. If you're good at something right now, so if you're a marketing consultant or a sales consultant, or you do IT, or you do web design, or you do whatever it is you do in your day job, there potentially is an opportunity to go in and do that for the company in exchange for an equity kicker. So is there something that you already have a skill or expertise around that you could do to the business that would add value and potentially give you that equity kicker? Now, the great thing is when you go in and you deliver what you said you're going to deliver and they give you that equity kicker, you're now in the kind of trusted inner circle of that entrepreneur. So now when you want to ask for something more, you're more likely to get it. And so what we're going to ask is to buy the rest of the company effectively using their own money. Now, if you look at the two scenarios, scenario A, you approach this 70-year-old guy that's been running the business for 40 years, doesn't know you from Adam, but you seem like a nice person and they've had a nice conversation with you. And you say, I would like to buy your business and I'm going to pay you over 5 years using the free cash flow that your business generates in order to settle that payment over the 5-year period. They're probably likely to say no, much the same way as if you walked into a Ferrari garage and made the same sort of offer. You're probably not likely to get very far with it. However, if you'd gone in and said, I can help, improve your cash flow, your marketing, or whatever it is. And if I'm successful, I get an equity stake. And then we can try and sell the business together because it's going to be worth more, and you know, we can have an exit opportunity. And then you go in and you actually deliver that thing that you said you were going to do. Now, in this day and age, somebody that says they're going to do something and then actually does it are in the top 1% of all the people on the planet, because most people overpromise, underdeliver, don't do what they say they're going to do, lose interest after a short period of time, etc. So you're now in kind of pole position as a person that's just said they were going to do something and literally just gone and done it. And so from that pole position place, if you then say, I would now like to buy the remaining 90% of your company, and I would like to pay you over 5 years using the excess cash flow from your own business, you're much more likely to get a yes at that point. And even if you get a no at that point, the plan A of selling it together with you as an equity partner is very real and very possible. So it's a great way of creating equity value from the consulting or the work that you do currently by injecting that value into an existing business. So yeah, I would say that this is probably one of the more simple ways of taking over a company from the position of being an employee, or being not necessarily in a position to take on doing deals full time. Now, most Harbour Clubbers do this using a consulting agreement. So they actually enter into a consulting agreement with the company, which pays a retainer, so they're receiving money every month, and then they have the equity as a kicker. And I've done videos before about how you protect yourself as a minority shareholder, because it's very easy to get 10 or 20% of a company. If you're not careful, you're just a passenger in the business as a minority shareholder. So I've obviously shared some videos on how you can make sure that you protect that position as a minority shareholder. So you need to make sure that that shareholders agreement piece is taken care of. But yeah, this is a great kind of transitional model. Now, Steve, you've been doing Weibos in your transactions. What have you learned doing them, and how do you approach them?
Did you do anything so ironic, because I had a phone call this morning, Jeremy, from somebody who I used to back in corporate life. I did a little bit of contracting, and I had kind of a specialist set of skills around financial reporting and putting in reporting systems and things like that. And this guy called me and he said, look, I'm trying to find somebody. I've got this company in Hull. He said they're in this position, they're sort of early to mid 50s. They've kind of lost the way in terms of the financial reporting, and they've got all sorts going on. They need help. Now, back in the day, pre-Harbour Club, I could have gone in there, done the consulting bit, and left them in a better position. Whereas now I think in a different way. So now I can go in there. We're meeting them for a coffee next Tuesday, and I'm going in there with the mindset: one, we've got an LLP potential here, or I've got a couple of other potential deal structures that I can put to them, or I'll help them to put the business back on track, but I'll take a stake in the business to do it. So it's amazing how your mindset changes.
And actually, do you know what? I sometimes think it's easier to ask for equity than for cash. If you're saying, "Oh, pay me X," sometimes there's a bit of a hard swallow. Whereas give me 20% or 25% of it, which could be exponentially more valuable in the medium term. People are more happy to do, particularly if they're coming from a bit of a pain point where they're looking for a problem to be solved, and you can make that problem go away, and they see you as then a viable partner for them going forward. So the Weibo has become hugely popular in the Harbour Club community, and yeah, we basically it's a great way to pivot from coaching or consulting or a job into actively deal making and having your salary paid. Now, obviously, it's one of 15 different deal structures that we go through in the Harbour Club course, and so we go into detail on lots of different ways that you can do stuff. Now, if you have any questions, do fire away. I see there's 3 here in the Q&A, which I'll get to now, but if you want to stick them in the chat, it's always easier for me, actually. So if you because it gives me a little alert when they come in. So if you look at the bottom toolbar, you see there's a little speech bubble that says chat. If you click on that, you can just type a message, it pops up here and I can read it out live. If you don't have the little speech bubble that says chat, you may have 3 dots If you click on the three dots, it'll give you a few options, one of which is chat. So you click on that, type in the message, and away you go. And I'm sure Steve will be happy to answer a couple of questions as well if you have anything that's specifically aimed at him. So the first one is, hi Jeremy, since you consider that launching a startup is a rite of passage for someone who's been an employee who wants to buy a business, do you think it could be a disadvantage? What should we do to learn what that we would have learned from a startup? Once you've got one, you'll get all of those startup lessons fairly quickly, or quite a few of those startup lessons fairly quickly. But I would say the only barrier can sometimes be in that rapport and empathy piece, because building rapport and empathy with an entrepreneur, if you haven't experienced what they've experienced, could be a little bit more tricky. But we've got tons and tons of examples of people who've done it without that. So, your expertise in a particular industry can be as valuable as your expertise as an entrepreneur. So either targeting companies in a related industry where you understand them can help break down those barriers and create that rapport, or if your expertise is the answer to their problem, understanding their problem well can also help build that rapport and empathy. And at the end of the day, rapport and empathy is more about listening to people, letting them talk and getting into what their pain points are, and then actually addressing their pain points, rather than, I think, the traditional conversation model, which is waiting for the other person to stop talking so you can say what you've been wanting to say all along, which is a great way of destroying rapport. So yeah, getting people to really open up and talk is very, very helpful. I mean, Steve, you've obviously mastered this. Is there anything you'd add to that?
No, I don't want to call it a script, but I've got a series of questions for information that I'd like to know, which I can't get ahead of the meeting. I'll do my own research, as I said earlier. And I ask the leading questions and I shut up. I'll let them speak.
Yeah, silence is a great one for making them say a little bit more. Yeah. If you don't reply too quickly, they feel the need to fill the gap of air with something. So somebody here asking about the bank wanting skin in the game when you're borrowing money from them. Look, we don't like to do leverage buyouts, so we don't tend to borrow money to do transactions. But look, there's a private equity trick for leverage buyouts, which is where they offer a good chunk of money to the person who they're buying the business from, on the condition that that person reinvests in their private equity fund. And so a portion of the cash comes back into their fund. And they say that so that they get, the selling point is, we're going to give you 10 million, but we want you to invest 3 million in our fund. So you get a second bite of the cherry, so when we make this business hugely valuable, your 3 million will then benefit from that massive upscale we've done. That's the story. But what they really want is, because they also have to have 30% or 20% equity in a transaction where they're borrowing money from the bank. So by getting the vendor to actually put that cash into the transaction, they can cover that bit of it. I don't think that quite answers your question, but I would then still circle back to the avoiding leverage buyouts if you can, and also whether or not the debt is personally guaranteed, because if you're personally guaranteeing the debt, I also wouldn't do it. It's borrowing money to invest in a highly volatile asset like a small business is not a great idea. So but let me go on to the next one. Is it possible to get deals done without an accounting background? Yeah, I don't have an accounting background. 90% of the Harbour Club community don't have accounting backgrounds. I would say the other 10 do, but because there are quite a few of them. but yeah, it is absolutely possible. I wouldn't say that means you never need to understand accounts, by the way. You can do deals without understanding accounts, but I would also say it's a skill you should pick up. It's not as hard as it looks. It's one of those things that professionals deliberately try and make it look more complicated, because that's how they earn their fees. But actually, when you drill into it, it's relatively straightforward, and it's one of those things. It's kind of like looking at. I spent some time in Eastern Europe and Russia, and you look at that Cyrillic alphabet, and you just go, "Fuck! It's all might as well be hieroglyphics." You can't understand any road signs, any street signs, or anything. And then I got an app for the Cyrillic alphabet. It's called the Cyrillic alphabet because it was invented by a bloke called Cyril. I'm not joking. So I got an app for the Cyrillic alphabet, and learn 80% of it, like 80% of it quite quickly, because some of the letters are the same, some of them have similar sounds, things like that. So learned about 80% of it very quickly, and then started looking at shop signs and realizing most of the words were kind of English, like sports center and passport and airport and, and all these kind of words were basically English, but just written in this daft alphabet. So it was actually it was quite liberating to understand. I think it's kind of the same with accounts. Once the penny drops and you understand a few things, all of a sudden you just look at it and go, oh, I get it now. That's I kind of understand it. So it doesn't actually take that long to learn when you apply yourself to learning it, and then it all comes down to experience. Like everything else, it's repeat. You know, repetition is the mother of learning. You know, doing it again and again, you really get the hang of it. What are the 3 best ways to source deals? Well, obviously Steve has just talked about using introducers to bring you transactions, LinkedIn, and writing letters basically directly to the targets. I think are the 3 big areas that most people are doing deals right now. I've got hi Jeremy, which I think might just be a hi Jeremy. Oh, hi. Consultants often get offered profit sharing but not equity sharing when dealing with a thriving business. How to change that? Don't ask, don't get. So putting your money where your mouth is, becoming a partner going forwards, long-term alignment. You know, there's lots of ways that you can sell it to them, and a lot of the time it's just asking. So I used to have a sort of suite of solutions that I would bring to take a 50% stake in a company. And like I say, Craig, who came on the first or second Harbour Club, literally took almost that identical suite of solutions and asked somebody for 80% and got it. And this was a 30-year established business with proper assets. It was a printing company. It owned all its printing presses. I mean, it was a substantial business, and he walked away with 80% of it, which made me think I should have been asking for more all of these years. But I was actually quite happy with the 50%. It meant they were super motivated to work hard as well. But when is the best time to leave a company after starting doing deals? If I'm being facetious, when they find out and sack you. Yeah, I mean, you know, the longer you can leave it, the better. There becomes a tipping point where you kind of have to do something. So, you know, Gowrie Lamb, who is quite well known in our community with her husband James, she came and did the Harbour Club when she had a 2-year-old child. She had a full-time job with Hugo Boss in the UK running their facilities management, which was basically looking after all of their retail outlets. It was a really long full-time job, early starts, you know, often late finishes, sometimes weekends. So it was a proper full-time job, plus a 2-year-old, plus her husband decided to row the Atlantic for charity. Which is a great idea when you've got a 2-year-old. I wish I'd thought of that. So she came on the Harbour Club, and I remember thinking, how on earth are you going to find the time to do any deals? And what she did is every day she got into work half an hour early. She sat at her computer, identified, she set herself a target of identifying 10 targets every morning before she would start her day job. And then on the Friday, she would collate all of that data she'd gathered through the week and prepare all the letters. And on Saturday, she would post them out. And I think within about 2 months of doing the Harbour Club, she bought her first company, which was a 5 million revenue electrical engineering company. Now, actually, she rescued that company, managed to save them from, they owed some money by somebody, she managed to get that collected in, and it was looking great. And one of their biggest customers went bust. So actually, that business ended up failing. She obviously had income from it, but she'd kept her job during that time. But actually, just as it failed, another deal closed, which is another one she had working on in her pipeline, which was an even bigger business doing about 8.5 million of revenue, doing almost $1 million in profit, 900,000 a year in profit. And she was able to close that deal, £1 down. She actually got a thank you letter from the owner that she could use them for future deals, to show them a kind of thank you letter from the owner, how she'd really helped them transition out of the business. And it was only at that point that she then quit her full-time job. And so that was probably 9 months in, 12 months in, something like that from starting. Now, some people don't get their first deal done until much later. You know, some people, it takes longer, but yeah, I mean, Steve has shown from May, he's managed to do 5 deals since May. That's probably a bit exceptional. I probably wouldn't do it expecting to to do that. But the great thing is everybody in the community helps each other. So, Steve sits on mentoring calls with groups of new people that have come through the Harbour Club and answers questions for them and helps them through those first weeks where everything's a bit new and they're figuring out how everything works. So, and we have lots of people like Steve who volunteer their time in that way in the community to help people. There's plenty of support. Any suggestions for finding such businesses for employees? Yeah, as I discussed before, really, LinkedIn is a great source, letters, networking, that kind of thing. How would one structure an equity stake with multiple shareholders with divergent expectations? Most businesses you come across are what would be described as owner managed. So it's typically a very tight shareholding. They might have, all in their name, or half them, half their wife, half them, half a business partner, or them plus some shares with a senior member of staff, something like that. So you don't normally find there's too much herding cats. You do occasionally come across that, but generally speaking, it tends to be a relatively simple capital table. What are the downside of switching career to different M&A sectors or industry? Variety is the spice of life. I don't think there's a big issue in jumping around doing different things. I think that whole idea of single sector career is important if you want to move your way through the ranks in a corporate organization and end up at a board level. But if you're an entrepreneur, it's shiny new thing syndrome. What's your new favorite toy, basically, and go and play with that. So which is quite liberating. I've never been particularly, I describe myself as sector agnostic in that I'm not really very sector specific when it comes to the types of deals that we look at. What happens in a scenario when a consultant grows the business exponentially and then the owner refuses to sell or grant an equity stake? What recourse will one have? We do it all contractually. So in fact, quite often with the Weibo structure, you're taking the equity up front on condition of meeting certain requirements, but some people do agree to take the equity later. But of course, you do have to, just the caveat there, I'm not saying it will work 100% of the time. The caveat would be, legal agreements are only as good as the people who sign them. And the world does have the odd bastard kicking around. So don't live in sort of cloud cuckoo land that everybody does what they say they're going to. In fact, lots of people don't do what they say they're going to. So just keep one eye on that. Talking earlier about Russia and the Cyrillic alphabet, the Russians have a wonderful expression which literally translated means trust but verify, which is when anybody tells you something, trust but verify. In other words, don't call them a liar, but go check it out. I totally take your point about the pain of startups, but at least with a startup, you can increase time and money invested as you get confidence in the market opportunity. But not all SMEs can be easily grown, or not at least without increased cash injection. How do you deal with uncertainty, whether you can materially improve the performance of target companies? Yeah, so the disadvantage you have with a startup is nothing happens until you've got some working capital. Generally speaking, I mean, sometimes you can have a business where you can get a sale, use the proceeds of the sale to get the next one, and so on and so forth. But in most of them, you need to be able to inject capital to get growth. With an existing business that has revenues coming in, you just have to adjust either the cost structure or other things in the balance sheet to release extra cash flow to use that to grow. And you can also, if you have a startup idea, why not go and buy a business and inject that startup idea into the business? So focus on a business that has the same type of client or the same type of resources in its internal team, and acquire something that already exists and just develop your product within that existing company. And that way you're not pumping that cash in, you're using this new vehicle to promote your the idea you had in the shower the other day. So there's a few financial engineering things that we use that dramatically improve the cash flow of businesses, and so I would do that. We've got Laura. Hi, Laura, Harbour Clubber, who's listening in. Yeah, she's done it a couple of times. It is you don't need to do it multiple times, but it is nice when you first do the Harbour Club. Everything is new, and I think the second time you do it, you can pick and choose the bits that are relevant to you on where you are on the journey now. So, but of course, you don't need to do it multiple times. In fact, a lot of the information you can get from inside the Harbour Club community app. So That's relatively straightforward. This is great stuff right here. Do you have any courses or coaches for people who already did their first or second deal? Yeah, I mean, look, the Harbour Club isn't really a course, it's a community. And I think this is the thing that often gets lost, because I think sometimes in our marketing, we're kind of positioned a bit as a course. Now, we do have a 3-day course element to it, but that's a tiny fraction of the overall picture. And in fact, that 3 days is a bit of an information dump, not a traditional kind of learning course. We don't waste anybody's time. We don't try and upsell you the next big thing. There's nothing else you can buy from us, by the way, apart from membership to the Harbour Club. You know, most of the courses out there follow that traditional model of a small product to get your attention, an upsell to a bigger product. And then, you know, when you're on that 3-day course, you have 1 day of telling you how great the next day is going to be, 1 day where you get some of the information you thought you were going to get, and 1 day where they sell you the thing to get the information you thought you were going to get on the first one. We, in every bit of everything we do, we massively over deliver. We give you, you know, all of those crazy quotes we have on our website, the things you're going to get on the Harbour Club. You'll get all of those and more, and your money back. We're the only course that offers a completely no quibble money back guarantee. Everyone else you have to jump through. You have to send 100 letters, speak to 50 people, send them the evidence that you spoke to 50 people and all this crap. With us, if you don't like it, 2 days in, you can just hand your stuff back and we give you your money back. It's 100% no quibble guarantee. Nobody else offers that. You know, the reason being, we make our money doing deals. We're not interested in building a giant training company. If we followed the traditional model, we could probably generate 5 or 10 times the revenue for the training business, but that would still be a tiny percentage of what we generate actually doing deals. So it just doesn't make sense to do that. So yeah, absolutely. Look, once you're in the community, there's this thriving, active group of people who are sharing case studies, sharing best practice, joint venturing with each other. We have these mentoring calls that are going on all the time. When you first come off a course, you have the 3-day thing, you have a 12-week one that's automatically included. So you have 12 weeks of follow-up with a mentor to discuss deals that you're working on or things that you're looking at or bits that you might be stuck on, etc. But even when that finishes, there are loads of others you can jump into. There's a women's one, there's geographically centered ones. There's, you know, Australia and Benelux countries and south of England, Midlands, Northwest, like Texas, Florida, southern states, eastern states, New York group, Canada group. I mean, there's just, you know, loads of different groups that you can join. Leverage buyout group, property group. Yeah, lots of different ones that you can jump into to keep the motivation, keep you know, networking with really great, really interesting people. Can I get a recording of the Zoom call? Just reach out to one of the team who invited you here and see what you can do. I can see it's being recorded, but I don't know if we're sharing it, so they'll let you know. You spoke about no money down. Can you please give some options on that? Yeah, I think the Weibo deal that I walked you through is probably a great example of taking a sweat equity position and then buying the rest of the business using a deferred payment plan. Like I say, a deferred payment plan on its own, you get very short shrift, but you put yourself at the front of the queue in the trusted, safe pair of hands department by doing something for them first. Now, remember, there are a load of natural buyers for these businesses. Small to medium-sized businesses are quite tricky to sell, and nearly all of the ones that you will come across, I mean, like 99% of the ones you will come across, are not in a position to sell. They're not ready to sell. They don't have everything together in a way that would appeal to a buyer. So we've got a huge advantage of pretty much being the only game in town. How much equity should you take? Whatever you can get away with. There are no rules on this. Like I said, I used to take 50. Craig took 80. Typically, I see people taking 20 to 30% stakes. It depends how much you can sell the value that you're adding to them, and how significant the pain is that they're getting from not having that right now. I mean, Steve, what do you normally go for?
I'd probably start at 30, and if I 30 to 40. But it depends on how the conversation's progressing and the rapport you're building up. Yeah,
no, that's good. That's good advice. Yeah, I've seen quite a few people do there's 2 of you and 1 of me. Should we go a third, a third, a third? That's quite a common way people position it. But like I say, it really is. There's no particular rules around this. Hi, Jeremy and Steve. Thank you for doing this. This is the Dapo question. Dapo, whenever you're on, what books are you reading? So, Steve, what books are you reading?
I'm currently in the middle of, or I'm near the end of, the Cash Flow Quadrants. Robert Kiyosaki's fantastic book.
Now, how relevant is that to switching from an employee to an entrepreneur? It is literally what it's all about. That whole movement from being an employee to an entrepreneur and an investor. Very, very relevant to today's topic. Well, I've got to give the shameless plug for Go Do Deals. If you haven't seen that, I've got this is the Wall Street Journal bestseller by, I don't know, some guy that's done loads of deals. So highly recommend that. Do you know what the book I'm genuinely reading at the moment is? It's called the book you wish your parents had read and your children will thank you for reading. It's a child psychology book. I've got 2 kids, a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. It's just something completely non-businessy. I'm just trying to think what the last book I finished before that was, because it's probably here somewhere. No, can't remember. But at the moment it's nothing business related, I'm afraid, Dapo. What's the price for the course? Yeah, just hit up Monty at harbourclubusa.com or John at harbourclubevents.com. So Monty is for US and Canada, John for rest of the world, and they'll fill you in with dates and prices and different options and things like that to keep you abreast of where we are at the moment. Hi, Steve. What was the deal structure of the first deal that you described?
When we analysed the accounts, they had about 160k on the balance sheet. We put down, I wanted to use 90,000 of that as a completion payment, which he's happy to do, and then the rest of it was paid over 3 years. What he also suggested to him was we could defer the first of the monthly deferred payments for 6 months, just to get through corporation tax, quarterly VAT, and all that kind of stuff. And he was happy to go with that.
Fantastic. I like the payment holiday idea. That's quite innovative. Would it ever make sense to create a mini private equity fund with a single goal to purchase a small business? That structure is called a search fund. So if you Google search funds, you'll see loads and loads of information about that. Very, very popular with kind of MBA students and things like that, which is basically you set up a small fund, you go and raise money from I think it's often classified as the 3 Fs, the friends, fools, and family who stick money into it, and you then go off and you go and execute a deal. There are fucking loads of these. I mean, there are tons and tons of these little search funds, and they're not terribly successful at doing deals, because what they tend to do, for a start, they focus on brokers and intermediaries to find their deal flow, and those deals tend to be overpriced. As I pointed out, 99% of deals on the market aren't ready to sell, including those, especially those sometimes being offered by brokers and intermediaries. And so what tends to happen is they've done an MBA, so they know all of the, how InBev or Budweiser or whatever, they understand how to do a mega deal and all the due diligence and legals and everything else that are needed in order to put together a massive corporate deal like that. And they're now looking at a shitty little business in Swansea and trying to figure out how you make that work. And of course it fucking doesn't, because every small business you look at, without being too crude, every small business is a bit shit. And you've kind of got to be able to work through that and figure out how you're going to resolve those things rather than making those a barrier to getting a transaction done. So those search funds often just get paralyzed and bogged down in the due diligence. And I've done 2 deals, I've probably done many, but there's 2 deals I can think of where this was this really came to light. One of them was a business that basically had already gone bust. It was a health club and spa. It was 15,000 square feet. They'd spent 3.5 million fitting it out. The administrator had run it for 6 months and basically cleared as much of the creditor position as he could, and now just wanted to offload it and get rid of it. And he had one of these search fund type people trying to buy it from him, who was just bogging him down in questions he couldn't answer and didn't want to answer. And I remember having a chat with the administrator, and he was literally tearing his fucking hair out because this guy was asking for a list of the contingent liabilities. What he meant was people that had paid for gym membership in advance, but who weren't, now he had to give them gym membership, even though they weren't going to be paying him every month. And look, exasperated, this administrator had just said, look, fuck off, it's cheap. Do you want it or not? You know, and I literally said to him, I said, when's the next DD run coming in, direct debit run coming in? And he said, on the 1st of November. And I said, how much is it? And he said, I think it was 40 grand or something like that. And I said, okay, I will pay you 15 grand on the 1st of November, provided I can keep the DD run. In other words, I'll give him 15 grand back of the 40 grand I'm about to receive from the DD. And he just went, done. Because he was an administrator, everyone else had already been paid. He just didn't want to have to pick up the phone and deal with it anymore. It was done. So we bought this huge, beautiful spa. Someone who'd been doing due diligence for ages in there, and we were able to jump in and do it really quickly. I did another one, which was a joint venture with the Harbour Club back in about 2010, it must have been. And it was a software kind of tech company. They'd had someone doing due diligence on it for 6 months. We went in and bought it in a week flat and sold it back to the guy that had been doing due diligence for months. We bought it for no money down and sold it to him for 6 figures. There was about a 9-month gap in between those two things, but interestingly, it had quite a big database that we were able to utilize for cross promotion of various services and things like that. So we actually made a little bit of money out of it while we owned it and before we sold it. So yeah, search funds exist. There's loads of them. The biggest challenges you have with them are they tend to be run by people that get too bogged down in the detail. But the other thing, if you were thinking of mirroring it as an option, I think the biggest challenge is you end up doing all of the work, but sharing most of the upside with the people who put the cash into the fund. So you end up only with a sliver of the equity. And when you're doing a small business where the flip is probably 6, or if you're lucky, early 7 figures, and you've only got a small percentage of it, and you've done all the work, it's quite soul destroying at the end of it all. Great experience, I'm sure, but I think there are ways of you acquiring the whole business, just like Steve did, without using cash up front, so therefore not having to raise this small private equity fund. And I think that would be a better way forward. Best way to source, I think I've kind of covered. How would you go about finding companies? Yeah, that's also been covered. So yeah, speed to speed, reach out. But basically, if you want to start doing deals like this, don't get hung up on the deal. Don't get hung up on the deal structure and how you're going to put it together. Just start talking to business owners in the sectors that you would like to own companies in. So if you want to own air conditioning companies in Colombia, start speaking to air conditioning company owners in Colombia. Find them on LinkedIn, reach out to them, have a chat, and just start talking to them, because you'll start to find out what the common pain points are, start to understand how they tick. You'll probably speak to 2 or 3 where there are obvious synergies or crossovers or problems that one could solve with the other. And it'll just give you a really good grounding of the area that you're getting into, and you'll get a feel for whether or not there's an opportunity. And you'd be surprised how many of those rapport-based conversations can actually turn into a deal, or the makings of a deal that you might not get the first time, but it's great experience. It teaches you a lot, taking it, taking one to the altar, but not quite getting married. So it's really worth starting to have those conversations. Do your strategies work for US markets? Also, how much is the course? Yeah, we have loads of delegates in the US, and they're very, very active. Yeah, quite a few communities that have sprung up in different areas that are working together and doing joint venture deals. Just hit up Monty, Ryan, and ask them about price dates and different payment options and things like that, and he'll be able to make sure you're looked after. How do you present as a credible investor, potential owner, if you haven't owned a business before, as a newbie? Look, most people are sitting on a mountain of value. I've stolen that term from Daniel Priestley. Good book. He writes some good books if you want to read his books. But you'll often find you're sitting on a mountain of value. And when you're sitting on a mountain, often you can't see the mountain. You can see the view, but you don't see the mountain. Now, you've got a career. There's stuff that you've done in your life. If you just look down and look at all the things that you've already achieved, that's the value that you can potentially bring to a target. They're the things that you're good at, that you're able to do. And I think you can add /investor to just about any job title. So, I was in, just before the pandemic broke down, we did a Harbour Club in Los Angeles. So I took the option of having a little holiday in Beverly Hills before doing the Harbour Club. And every single Uber driver I had in Beverly Hills was an actor. So it was the slash actor that they put after whatever it was that they were doing. So I think you can put slash investor on your job title on LinkedIn and position yourself to start having those conversations. Is there a best practice roadmap for transitioning from job to acquisition? Yeah, really, I think it's this Weibo strategy, and it's discussed quite a bit in the Harbour Club community. And there's a few like cliques of people that do it in different ways. There's one model I quite like, which is businesses that are looking to sell. And they're asking like, everyone wants $1 million. So they're saying, I want $1 million for my business. And so we've got this little valuation tool where you type all of their details in. In fact, Steve, have you tried that?
I put them myself. Yeah, well, you're talking about the other one. Yeah.
The beta one, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, any good?
Very good. Yeah,
cool.
Something you can use as a tool for sourcing, because you can direct it to your website. Look, fill this in, present you with a professional looking report. Good way to sort of get a foot in the door.
Yeah, so no, it's just interesting to hear, because obviously I hear it from one side. It's always good to hear independent views as well. But yeah, basically you do this report, you spit it out, it tells them what they're really worth, which might be say 300 grand. So then you've got the 300 grand to 1 million disparity, and you basically volunteer to go in and help them get that mismatch. They've been promised this million by this broker, but he's just told you that so he could list your business. Let's see how we can get the business to be actually worth $1 million, and you do the Weibo to take a stake to help them increase the value. And once you're a stakeholder, you then say, well, look, if you're looking to sell it, you might as well sell it to me, and I'll just pay you over time, and you can see what a good job I'm doing and how much value I've added. So that's a great way to pivot job to acquisition. Steve, have you used any of your own money in any of your deals?
No, nothing.
No, cool. Yeah, I have, and I've often realized later that I probably could have done it without. So when I first started doing deals with no money, it was out of necessity because I didn't have any money. And then when I had some money, I started throwing a bit of money at deals, and then I kind of caught myself doing it and realized I was only doing it because I had the money. And then if I just spent a bit more time on the transaction, a bit more discussion, the same deal was there without the money, and I almost made it like a belligerent to do it. And then I started focusing on how do I buy great businesses that are profitable, that are well run, with no money down. And by the way, the largest acquisition in the Harbour Club community without any money down. So I held the record, which was 92 million in revenue and 11 million profit. But somebody has done one that's over 50 million pounds. So $90 million was Singapore dollars. Someone over 51 million pounds, 2 million profit, which I think would just about tip the new record. So we are knocking on to some fairly big deals without using a penny of cash in the transaction. Hi, Jeremy, Ricardo Navales. I did the Harbour Club in December. Hey, how you doing? Do you have examples of Weibo projects in which each party is in different countries? Yeah, so again, we've got a lot of cross-border deals happening at the moment. So quite a few people, from one country doing deals in another country. I would reach out into the community if you hop into the app and just stick that question in the app and see who replies, because off the top of my head, I can think of 2 or 3 deals where people have bought companies from other countries, but not necessarily using Weibo. So the 3 that I can think of off the top of my head are not Weibo, but of course, I can't remember every single deal right now because there's stuff coming through all the time. Hi, Jeremy, if you don't have a particular consulting skill to offer, is it still possible to do a deal using one of the strategies while having a job? Yeah, absolutely. You can use the financial engineering stuff that we teach in order to generate more profit and cash in a business. And that's a great way of getting a sweat equity stake. Or you can always partner with people. The great thing about having the Harbour Club community is the ability to joint venture with people. Steve mentioned he's got 4 joint venture deals on the boil at the moment. That's where other Harbour Clubbers have seen him being an active member and doing deals and decided that actually for my first one, I'd like to partner up with somebody like that. I liken it to, if you wanted to go parachute jumping, you could stick the parachute on, we could kick you out of the plane. you'd probably figure it out on the way down and land safely. But if you prefer, you could be strapped to somebody that's done it before. So yeah, basically joint venturing is a great way to do that. To see ways of improving a company and making it worth more, what skills, expertise do you require? Finance, business acumen? No, you really just need to understand the tools, understand what it is that that can be done. You know, I would probably say that if you can, selling skills are probably the most important skills in this, in terms of, yeah, and selling skills can be learned. It's a process. Hi, Jeremy, happy to meet you virtually. Thank you. I'm in a first Zoom session and first contact with Harbour Club. I'm located in Graz in Austria. Oh, beautiful. Love to learn the skills and strategies to buy companies and increasing their value over time. I'm currently working as an employee, plus having a little side hustle as a sole trader. Great. But so limited with changing time and money, so looking for more scalable opportunities. Fantastic, lovely. So yeah, I've not been to Graz. I've been on the other side of the hill in Ljubljana, in other side of the hill, mountain, in Slovenia. I was in Switzerland last week as well, up in the Alps. But yeah, very beautiful. Good day, great work for all panelists, and this is really amazing. But I don't, if this will be posted. Sorry, I have emergency attention now and need to leave. Okay, yeah. Thanks, Umar. Is the Harbour Club process system limited to the UK? Would it work in Europe? No, we have a big community in the US and Canada. In fact, that's why this particular webinar is on the US time zone to help you guys. Any good ideas on where to find firms to take over? Yeah, we've covered those. Have you had situations where a business had multiple owners, decision makers, one owner accepted the Weibo, but the other's completely against it because you're not putting money down to join the partnership? How is this handled? So no, we haven't come across, I personally haven't come across those situations. I've had a situation where there were 3 partners or 3 shareholders who had equal shares, and basically my Weibo was to encourage 2 of them to, well, 2 of them wanted to leave, so it was to get rid of 2 of them and for me to come on. And that went from being, you know, they were each a third to me being 50%, and the guy that was a third going up to 50%. So it was easy to sell him because he was increasing, and it was just about doing a deal that was good for those 2 because they wanted to leave the business and go off and do other things. So, but no, I've not had any kind of combative sort of situations like that, but there are loads of war stories in the Harbour Club of deals that nearly happened. Yeah, there's for every one that does, there's a few that nearly did. As a marketing consultant, I've found it takes 6 to 9 months to start to turn around a B2B company. Often requires almost redoing every platform available and spending a little to help them get on the right radar of their target audience. Do I ask for a flat fee to at least cover out-of-pocket costs in addition to equity piece? Yeah, so a lot of people in the Harbour Club charge a consulting fee or retainer. We can obviously show you some financial engineering tricks which you could bring to the party that would have very, very quick results while they're waiting for the marketing results to come through. So some quick sort of fixes that would increase cash flow or increase profit for them kind of day one. Yeah, accounting a sales ledger is just a list. Yeah, exactly. Is it possible to sell a business portfolio all at once, or is every deal separate? It depends. You may be able to, but generally speaking, people don't like, or people tend to specialize in one sector. So if your portfolio is multi-sector, you'll probably find the best value is in trade selling each of those businesses to the appropriate trade buyer. That's the most common home for those kind of small businesses. It sounds like if you don't have any significant skills to make a successful company more successful, a person should focus on distressed companies. I'm definitely afraid of promising something and not being able to deliver. Yeah, so it doesn't necessarily mean focus on distressed companies, but maybe the value add that you could bring could be in improving the profit and the cash flow. So you could still do the Weibo deal, but bring the financial engineering things to bear. Obviously, you'd need to understand what those are and see whether or not you feel confident that you could deliver those before running around promising people. But but yeah, they're relatively straightforward, and they involve outsourced third parties that you can get involved to help you. So it's relatively straightforward. Is there a company size, number of people, annual revenue to avoid? Yeah, so look, there's a bit of a sweet spot where most of the deals in the community tend to get done, and it's kind of between 500,000 and 5 million of revenue. And I would say a really good target area is 1 to 2 million of revenue, because there's almost no other buyers in play. They've just got to the right sort of size where they've got enough people and depth of resources that they can only deal without the owner there. Yeah, it just tends to work better. In some of the other strategies we talk about, where you get into the capital market stuff, then bigger is better. So 50, 100, 200 million revenue is sort of ideal. But yeah, for the sweet spot in most of the communities, that kind of 500,000 to 5 million sort of area. Hi, Jeremy, you mentioned no money down. I'm sure you need some capital. How much would you need to cover acquisition costs and the initial buy-in? You need to eat. You need to pay your rent. You might need to post letters to people. You may need a fixed fee lawyer. I mean, there's one in the community that does it for like $1,000. So, you know, a bit of pocket money, of course. You don't want to starve whilst doing it, but really it is no money down. You can, you know, there isn't like a deposit or something like that. How important is legal due diligence if you're doing an asset sale? Yeah, so generally speaking, we quite often don't do asset sales with the vendor. We would buy the shares in the company and then transfer the assets out of the company into a new company and deal with the old company through liquidation. But it's a bit of a big topic to get onto on a call that we're already 11 minutes overdue. Yeah, I would do that as another webinar, I think. In talking with attorneys about buying businesses, they've indicated that it's more complex to have partnerships. How do you simplify partnerships? Yeah, so generally you want companies that are limited in liability by share capital, not limited by liability partnerships. Depending on what jurisdiction you're in, that's like an LTD in the UK or a C Corp in the US. But yeah, something that's yeah, limited by share capital. Can you suggest a source to find suggestions to incentivize employees with equity, basically to understand incentive models? Yeah, so I mean, look, I've pissed around with this for decades, and it is really, really tricky. It's very easy to give people shares, very hard to get them back again. It's not very good. It works best in public companies when the company is listed and people can see a demonstrable value of the shares that they're receiving. And then there's all sorts of vested sort of solutions. But yeah, not something I've been terribly successful with, I would say, or that I can share a lot about. Sorry to ask, can Zero Cash Upfront work in Dubai? Yes, I'm actually in Dubai right now. Yeah, lots of opportunities. In fact, did one as soon as I got off the plane here back in January, February, something like that. A solar business doing £12 million revenue a year, 50% stake, zero cash down. When's the next Harbour Club event? Do you know what? I don't actually know, but as we're doing this webinar, it's probably in about 3 or 4 weeks. So we normally do them fairly close to an actual event, but reach out to the team and they'll be able to share with you. I just turn up and speak. Any chance of the recording? Yeah, reach out to the team and see if they can help you. What is the cost of the Harbour Club on an ongoing basis? Nothing else you can buy from us, no upsells. You pay a joining fee and that's it. Is there a menu of different groups to participate? And yeah, we have an app, and it's a fully native Android, iOS app on your phone, or you can use it on your computer as well. You can just dive into groups and it'll give you a list of all the different groups that you can hop in and join. There's a bonus content section. There's a deal documents section for documents and things that you need. There's a Rolodex of important contacts like finance brokers and fixed fee lawyers and things like that you can use. So yeah, there's lots of different groups you can jump into. Quite a lot of the groups have regular Zoom calls, or some of them have face-to-face get-togethers now. So good. Yeah, we have a sample Weibo contract. There's a few different ones, like I say, consulting to buy in, or just the straightforward taking a stake option. If you've never done any of this M&A sort of thing, and you are confident of finding a deal, once you've bought a company, what do you do if you don't have a clue what to do next? How to be an owner, considering you are now responsible for all the costs, employees, etc. of this company. Well, the first thing is you're not responsible for all the costs of employees and everything. The company is. That's an important differentiation when you're the owner of a company. That's not to say that you should take it lightly, but just to point out that simple fact. Yeah, obviously don't go bowling into something if you're massively out of your depth. Get an understanding, learn how to do it properly, learn where other people have bumped their heads and how you can do it in a better way. Joint venture with somebody that has experience if you're worried about that. Like I say, that first time you jump out of a plane, strap yourself to someone who's done it before. Have somebody who wants to insist on cash on completion, who does not want deferred payments and has said no to the others before. What should I do? Yeah, so look, everybody wants cash on completion. I want cash on completion. I've never met anybody that doesn't want cash on completion. Just because you really want something doesn't mean that it's going to happen. You know, I'd like a stranger on the street to give me £1 million in a house, but it's very unlikely to happen. So what you need to do is think about what their motivation is and what they're looking for and how you can meet it in a different way. Now, you just mentioned that it's for stock. What about if he continues to own the stock? And so you take the business over on a deferred basis, but he keeps the stock and you buy the stock from him as you sell it to the customers. And so you're paying him as you use the stock, and therefore it's not a deferred payment. He's retaining ownership. Right, last few questions because we're really overrunning. Jeremy, great webinar. Thank you. Question, how does IPO and bonds play into buying a first business? You buy a first business, you fix it, improve it, and then try to IPO to do a roll-up. Yeah, you could do that. So look, I mean, this would be quite an advanced strategy, but we do go into it in the Harbour Club, which is effectively you take a stake in a profitable, well-run, good quality business. You help add a load of value to it. You take it public. Now, as a Harbour Club community member, we'll show you how you can do a no money down IPO effectively. So you can take the business public without needing cash up front. Then when it's listed, you can do a bond issue, which is where you issue bonds which behave a bit like a currency. You can then go out and do further acquisitions. So you then grow by buying more businesses in that space. Now, the Weibo strategy is kind of this end of the spectrum. What I've just described is that end of the spectrum, and there's obviously a load of stuff in between. So probably again a different webinar to discuss that that tactic. So I'm really sorry, we're going to leave a few questions unanswered tonight, I think, because there are just loads of them. Let's just see, there's one for Steve here. How has Steve arrived at the valuation for the business acquired?
I've looked at 3 years worth of historical accounts. I look at the structure of the balance sheet, and I use an EBIT, but that's a starter for 10. You know, there's no hard and fast way to value a business. It's what somebody's prepared to sell it for. But as a guide, I will use a multiple of EBITDA. I'll look at the balance sheet to see what debt there is and any surplus cash, or if they need some additional cash put into the business, and I will use that as a starting point.
So somebody else here saying, Jeremy, do you offer one-to-one training? No, I only do the Harbour Club community, but I do spend a lot of time with people in the community. So anybody that has questions or wants anything, you actually have my direct WhatsApp number. You also have, I'm in the app as well for people to find me. And so I'm always there to answer questions. Quite often if people have got a live deal that they want to do something with, I can hop on a Zoom call with them, or even joint venture with them on deals if they've got a deal that they think would be up my street. So I do spend a lot of time in the community and with the members. It's not a take your money and run scenario. We're looking to build long-term partnerships and do stuff. And look, I mean, Steve is testament to this. He keeps coming back and helping other community members and stuff. And it's a virtuous circle, because if you go back into the community and you help people, you then get positioned as somebody who's helpful in the community. So when somebody has a deal, they then come and joint venture with you. And so it seems selfless in the beginning that you're giving up all this time and everything else. But actually, in the long run, it really rewards you in spades because people come back and bring you these amazing deals that they want to do with you. So it's well worth. Yeah, so loads and loads of other questions. I'm really sorry that we can't get to all of them, but yeah. So somebody asking about corpses in the closet. We say skeletons in the closet actually in the UK, so it's pretty similar. But we always say if you find skeletons in the closet, just get rid of all the fucking closets. So when you liquidate a company, literally those closets disappear. So you can remove the assets, the good bits from the company, and you can leave all the closets in the old company with their skeletons intact, and just get rid of the whole lot. So again, we run through how to do things like that on the Harbour Club. So a couple of things. I would say a massive thank you to Steve. He's given up his evening to come and speak to you guys. It's really appreciated and really helpful. So thanks a lot. And coming branded as well. I'm impressed. So when people come and speak at our events and share their stories with the new delegates, we send them some freebies. And so yeah, that's one of them. So that's just showing he's been a helpful citizen in the community. Look, I'd love to have you, as part of the community to, not only learn all the stuff that we're teaching and share the best practice, but also, be in a community of people who are like-minded and encouraging and fun and active and doing deals. And I think that's the real differentiator with the Harbour Club and any other way that you can go and learn this stuff, is that you really learn not from the training bit, you learn from the application part. And so the application part where you need the kind of the support and the community and the help and the different skills and people from different sectors and things like that. And I think that really does set it apart. I mean, Steve, do you use the community much, or are you a bit of a lone wolf out there?
No, I use it all the time actually, and 3 of the 4 JVs have come from exactly what you just said. They've come from within, either a group that I've mentored or with it from another Harbour Club member. And I think the other key thing is you can tend to get down one track, whereas what I tend to do is I go back and I look at the material and I look at the app just to refresh your memory sometimes, because you'll come back across something that you've forgotten, which could be really useful in the deal that you're about to do.
Yeah, fantastic. So look, if anybody wants just more information, just reach out to John or to Monty, depending what part of the world you're in. So whoever invited you to this this webinar, basically just reach out to them. They're more than happy to spend time with you, send you more information, answer questions that you might have about how the whole thing works. If it's for you, fantastic. If it's not for you, we pump out tons of free content all the time. So hopefully you can use that to inspire you and to help you in your business in other ways. And yeah, really look forward to meeting you face to face when we're doing an event called Deal Fest, when we're allowed to all be in the same room again together and cuddle. So we'll be doing Deal Fest, which will be fantastic networking 3-day event for all of our members coming soon. So maybe I'll see you all at a Deal Fest. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Good night.